Hi everyone. This is hopefully a relatively short video on how to set up your third generation Apple TV 4K with your relatively new 4K TV. So when I say the Apple TV third generation, just so you know, it's gonna be like the latest version as of this video, and it has this newer fully aluminum remote that comes with it. Okay, so like I said, this would work with most newer TVs, I guess, from the last 5 years or so. This is an LG C2 from 2022. So again, a lot of this would apply for most TVs that's within the same, more or less the same generation, or possibly earlier, which includes Sony's, Roku, and Samsung's, and the likes. Yeah. All right. So first things first, format, just set it to what Apple TV would recommend, which is 4K Dolby Vision. Again, most TVs already have Dolby Vision. Probably some would. The only reason you would switch it to any other format is if your TV does not support Dolby Vision. There are some cheaper TVs that will probably only support HDR10, but otherwise, Dolby Vision, just switch it to this. Don't be too clever and try to set it to anything like other than RGB, or some would recommend you to go to like other format like YCBR. Don't do that. The Apple TV and Apple in general knows colors. Don't mess with that. So keep it on Dolby Vision. And the other reason you wanted to keep it here is that because if you switch it to any other modes, you will introduce unnecessary flicker when you switch content. And again, I'll explain later why that will not be necessary here for the newest version of Apple TV. So the next thing that I would recommend, so here you have the match content option. So here by default, both of these will be off. Now, I'm not gonna lie about this match dynamic range. It doesn't, but in my opinion, it doesn't hurt to keep it on. I personally couldn't tell the difference with various content, whether it's match dynamic range on or off. Other YouTubers will say that match dynamic range will switch any SDR to HDR. I don't think that's what's happening when you switch to switch it off. But again, leaving it on will not hurt, so might as well keep it on. Now this is important. Again, with newer TVs, you want to switch this off, which is by default. Some would recommend to put it on. I don't. Keep it off. The reason for that is that you can see here on this hint, it would say play film and international content as its original frame rate. Some televisions do this automatically. So by that, you should just keep it off. And I will explain in a bit why you should keep it off. So the reason you want to keep this thing off is that because if you put it on, sure, it will guarantee that the frame rate will match the content, and Apple TV will not try to upscale it, guaranteed. But the problem with that is that you will, especially when you are using an external sounds, which in my case I have an AV receiver, and I'll put it to clip speakers. You will introduce audio sync issues. You will notice that for some content, like the ones that you bought on Apple store, the sound, the sound will not match the video. They'll be out of sync. So again, keep this off. This is very important. Now, lastly, I wanted to talk about the audio output. So first is that, like, with those loud sounds, keep it off. You just want to leave it on if you, like, you want to reduce, like, sounds, explosions and whatever. But for in general use, keep it off. That's the default. So, but keep it off so that you have the full dynamic range of your audio. As far as audio format, again, don't be too smart. Don't be too clever. Just leave it on Dolby Atmos if your system supports it. The only reason you would want to change it to something else is that if your receiver or your soundbar does not support Dolby Atmos. But again, if you purchased your sound system recently, it should have Dolby Atmos. One thing to note, what Apple TV does is that it doesn't actually, so there's a common complaint among, like, Apple TV users, not me, but, like, is that what the Apple TV does is doesn't support bitstream. It supports PCM. So what that means is that it sort of does some encoding to send it as PCM as opposed to bitstream, which is the equivalent to raw format, and let the AV receiver decode it to Dolby Atmos. But in this case, it's still Dolby Atmos, but it's packaged as PCM. Now, until like, hopefully Apple TV would eventually support bitstream. I was informed at some point it did, but they took it away. But I wouldn't really, honestly, I wouldn't be too hung up on that. I don't think you will be able to tell the difference. Like, I have content when I play straight to Blu-ray with Dolby through HD, and compared to the ones in Apple TV, which is Dolby Atmos through PCM, I honestly couldn't tell the difference. It still sounds good, and it's gonna be compressed anyway if you're gonna be playing through, like, Disney Plus or any streaming content. No content actually supports through HD anyway. So anyway, so that's it. So in summary, leave for any newer TVs with a third generation Apple TV. Leave the format to Dolby Vision 4K. Match content, match dynamic range on, match frame rate off, so you don't have any sync issues and you have the optimum audio video quality coming from your Apple TV.